Today, Bitcoin climbs toward its record after a brief pop over $107,000. President Trump's meme coin dinner will likely include mostly international-based holders of the token. And the CEO of Ondo Finance sits down with us at Consensus 2025 to discuss a new partnership with JP Morgan's blockchain unit. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Tanea McKeel. Bitcoin moving higher to kick off the week, trading at a late January high just under $105,000, a gain from its Friday price. Last night, it briefly popped above $107,000 before a subsequent drop. By noon Eastern, it was hovering below the flat line. Ether dropped more than 4% as of noon, and Cardano's ADA token fell just under 4%. Speaking with us at one of the largest crypto conferences in the world, Consensus 2025, last week, Cardano's founder Charles Hoskinson discussed the ADA token's inclusion in President Trump's crypto stockpile announcement earlier this year.
I looked at my phone and I had 150 messages saying congratulations. I said, for what? And they said, for ADA. And I checked Twitter and the president tweeted about it. I advocated for just a Bitcoin-only reserve because the government holds about 212,000 Bitcoin, and there's not really clear criteria for inclusion or exclusion for altcoins. But overall, it's a good day. It's nice to see progress being made, the U.S. government embracing crypto, and I think good policies coming.
Okay, let's talk about the top stories. World Liberty Financial, the crypto firm tied to President Trump and his family, is pushing back against Senator Richard Blumenthal's probe into the president's crypto ties, which includes World Liberty. Zach Witkoff, a co-founder of World Liberty, posted on X that a letter was sent last week to Blumenthal, who is the leading Democrat on a panel responsible for investigating compliance with regulations and laws. It says that Blumenthal's letter sent earlier this month contains inaccuracies and flawed inferences. On May 6th, Senator Blumenthal wrote a letter to Witkoff saying the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations is conducting a preliminary investigation into potential conflicts of interest and violations of the law from the president's crypto ventures, including World Liberty Financial. Senate Democrats have also raised concerns related to the Trump family's crypto ties and have objected to crypto legislation making its way through the legislative process. The White House has maintained that there are no conflicts of interest and that President Trump's assets are in a trust managed by his children. Next, with just 3 days left until the Trump meme coin dinner, it's looking like most of those in attendance will be people from other countries. Many wallets of the top holders are tied to international exchanges like Binance that don't service U.S. customers. That's according to documents from blockchain analytics firm Inca Digital, reviewed by CNBC, indicating they're likely not U.S. citizens. The nature of the anonymous wallets raises questions about the true identities and motivations of the token's largest holders. A Bloomberg analysis revealed that 19 of the top 25 wallets are almost definitely owned by people operating outside of the U.S. Crypto entrepreneur Justin Sun, who openly shared he bought $75 million worth of the Trump family's World Liberty Financial token, is believed to be the top holder on the Trump meme coin leaderboard. According to Bloomberg, a wallet called Sun currently holds more than $18 million worth of the token, with $4.5 million worth bought after the dinner contest was announced. A representative for Sun didn't get back to CNBC's request for comment right away. The top 220 Trump meme coin holders will participate in the dinner with the president at his Virginia Golf Club outside of D.C. on Thursday. Finally, crypto exchanges Binance and Kraken were also targeted by hackers. That's according to a Bloomberg report from Friday. The firms were reportedly targeted using the same type of social engineering hack that Coinbase was affected by, as it disclosed last week. Bloomberg reports that the two platforms were able to fend off the attacks without losing customer data. We told you last week that Coinbase disclosed hackers had bribed a group of overseas customer support agents to secure information like the last 4 digits of social security numbers, government ID images, and account balances. Coinbase has said private keys and login credentials are safe, and the company is offering a $20 million reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the perpetrators. Kraken has declined to comment for this report, and Binance didn't immediately get back to us. All right, back to Consensus for our main story. Crypto World's Mackenzie Sigalo sat down with Nathan Allman, the founder and CEO of Ondo Finance, from the crypto conference. Ondo is a blockchain firm building platforms and infrastructure to bring financial markets on-chain. Last week, we learned that JP Morgan's blockchain unit Connexus partnered with the company and Chainlink to complete the first cross-chain delivery versus payment settlement. The two spoke about that and what else is in store for Ondo Finance in the near future.
So this morning you announced a new partnership with JP Morgan for tokenized asset settlement. What does this mean in practice?
Yeah, so this is a big first for the industry. We completed a transaction where tokenized deposits from JP Morgan's permission blockchain ledger were used to purchase tokenized treasuries on our public blockchain Ondo chain. And it's really the first time that there's been this interoperability between a bank's permission blockchain environment and a public blockchain like Ondo chain.
So it was a test transaction. What's the next stage of this? What does that look like?
Yeah, so this was the first transaction on the Ondo chain testnet, and it was a pilot transaction to prove out the functionality, and we're working closely with JP Morgan and Chainlink to get to full production here. Once we're in full production, then anyone who is either a JP Morgan client or an Ondo client will be able to transfer between our respective tokenized cash products 24/7. So we're really excited to get that out there.
And what problem does that solve?
Yeah, so taking a step back, tokenized treasuries on public blockchains like what we have been building really just try to make US treasuries more accessible to investors all around the world. We're building on the success that stablecoins have seen. There's over $200 billion in stablecoins circulating today, making the dollar accessible to individuals in emerging markets, individuals within the crypto ecosystem that don't have great access to financial services. And then in parallel, JP Morgan and other banks and institutions have been, endeavoring to drive efficiencies and cost savings around the settlement of cash on permissioned blockchain ledgers. So JP Morgan famously has their intraday repo facility on a permissioned blockchain in which they settle cash very quickly with other institutions. And now that these two products are able to interoperate, we're able to start combining those benefits of cost savings and the benefits of accessibility together.
And so this is really more about consumers outside the US.
That's been our focus at Ondo to date. We're also engaged with the SEC and other regulators around how we can tokenize publicly traded securities in the US, and we would like to bring that to bear, with this sort of partnership as well. But for now, that's been our focus.
So let's talk about that. Tokenizing public equities has long been this big goal for the industry. You've also got Vlad Tenev over at Robinhood talking about tokenizing the private equity markets. And we've certainly seen regulators progress in their thinking on this front. You've got the SEC that rolled back SAB 121, which has made it easier, or basically opened the pathway for banks to custody cryptocurrencies. You've also got the FDIC, the Fed, the OCC revising their guidance on the crypto front, which has made it easier for banks to deal in blockchain tech. What more do you need? Is it a crypto market infrastructure bill from Capitol Hill? Is it more revised guidance from the SEC in order to make something like tokenizing public equities a reality in the US?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first, we need a framework for how to actually tokenize public securities in a compliant way in the US where the tokens are actually useful. And we think there's a path there through public registration, but it just hasn't been done yet. And we need the SEC to green light that effectively. So that's great because we don't need new legislation like we're seeing on the stablecoin side or the market structure side. And then we do need some exemptive relief around how wallets and DeFi protocols, and other infrastructure providers involved in the secondary marketplace can actually interact with these tokenized securities. Right now, there's a lot of ambiguity when it comes to a DeFi protocol, a DeFi lending, trading, or derivatives protocol around how and whether it needs to comply with registration requirements.
So much of the Ondo Finance team is comprised of ex-Goldman, ex-McKinsey, a lot of people from the traditional finance world. Talk to me about your competitive advantage in the industry, given the fact that so many members of your team come from that TradFi background.
Yeah, we certainly are very unique in our focus of bringing institutional grade structures and compliance to bear in the crypto ecosystem where, there's often not such a focus on, those sorts of features. And yeah, the market response has been really positive around, our focus on compliance and investor protections.
So absent a crypto market infrastructure bill, absent a stablecoin bill being passed into law, what do you see for Ondo Finance in the next 6 months? What can you do with existing regulation?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we don't really need anything to continue our plan of tokenizing these US publicly traded securities for non-US investors. So, that's what we're going to continue to do. These are Reg S securities issuances, meaning, they can be sold outside the US, and that's going to launch this year, really in the next few months. And it's going to be distributed through crypto wallets and crypto exchanges to start, where there's been tremendous demand to offer equities following Robinhood getting more into crypto, and we've seen Kraken and Crypto.com and other crypto exchanges announce their equities plays. So I think you're going to see a lot of those platforms, some of them working with us, getting into tokenized equities this year.
I think it's interesting that Consensus is being held in Toronto. We're a couple blocks away from the TSX, which was a safe haven for many crypto companies that were able to list here when the US was perhaps not as welcoming to Web3 related firms. What's the significance from your perspective of being here in Canada right now, the kinds of conversations you're having?
That's true. I mean, a lot of companies have started on TSX and are trying to uplist into NASDAQ, and I think we're going to see more of that. Thankfully, we're seeing more crypto companies buy public companies in the US and engage in the public securities landscape in the US directly. And I think we're going to see more convergence of that with what's happening on public blockchains natively.
All right, a note before we go, we are closely monitoring Capitol Hill as the Senate is expected to potentially vote on the updated Genius Act stablecoin bill this week. We will, of course, keep you updated. That's all for today, but we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.